Thank you. Welcome to Science Today, the premier Atlanta Science Festival talk show. We are going to have an incredible show for you tonight. We've got some brilliant scientists. We've got a rockin' band. We've got a wonderful audience, and we're happy to be here. So I am actually a mathematician by training, you know, it's interesting when you're a mathematician, you look at things in a different way. My wife is also a mathematician, and when we had our kids, we had our first kid, and then we had twins. And then, of course, we had to stop because we weren't sure if it was an arithmetic or a geometric progression. And you never really knew what that third pregnancy was coming out as. But it was too many, so we stopped with that. Yeah, and I teach at Georgia Tech. I use the standard state of Georgia grading policy that a lot of our esteemed colleagues will be familiar with. The Board of Regents instituted this recently, you know. 90 to 100 is an A, 80 to $90,000 will buy a B, and straight on down the line like that. So we're happy, though, that we're happy here because this is a great year for science. This is 2015. This is the 100th anniversary of the Einstein equations. Yes, general relativity. And, you know, I was thinking about Einstein and all of his work. You know, one of the things with special relativity that he did was he really studied the nature of space-time. And time is one of those really interesting things that I've been curious about. I actually wanted to, when I was a kid, I wanted to be an inventor. And I actually invented a time machine. I have a working time machine in my basement, which is pretty cool. I have to admit that it's not fully working in the sense that all the components, but I can go forward at a constant speed, 1 second per second. And so I've tried it out. I get in and I set the dial to like 5 minutes in the future, and I hit the ding, 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 and I wait, and then it goes bing, and then I get out, and you check the clocks, and it's like, whoa, this is 5 minutes. I'm in the future. So that's cool. And you know, the whole different speeds, different directions is just a version 2 feature but I suggest you invest in the time machine that I built. I have a lot of other great scientific projects that I've worked on in my basement. I have a perpetual motion machine designed on paper. I haven't actually built it, but it will work. People say perpetual motion won't work. It will. This design it takes forever to wind it up, though. So literally, actually, forever, and then it runs forever. But yeah, infinity, that's one of those things, forever, you know, it goes on. That's a hard thing. In math, we deal with an infinite a lot. I've written a little song here to tell you a kind of idea of how big infinity is. It's a little song that you guys can all take up. Infinity, bottles of beer on the wall. Infinity, bottles of beer. Take one down, pass it around. Infinity, bottles of beer on the wall. Start that one up if you're not sure how long the bus ride is. You'll still be singing when you get there. We have a really good show for you tonight. I'd like to do a quick impression before we close it up. This is an impression for some of you older folks in the audience. You might get this. It's a very unique impression. My impression of Bobby Kennedy in geometry class. This is an impression of Robert Kennedy in geometry class. Now, I usually do this with the slides. So you're just going to have to imagine the Cartesian plane here in front of me, the XY axis. Some people look at this axis and they say, why? I distinguish a specific point on the axis and I say, why not? Thank you. Thank you. And our wonderful friend Pete Ludovice is here. Hello, let's welcome Pete.
Wonderful friend.
You're a wonderful friend.
That's Pete. A promotion now. I was the guy living in the cardboard box about 3 hours ago.
So Pete, of course, you want to introduce yourself. Pete's a faculty member at Georgia Tech as well in the
School of Chemical and Biomolecular Engineering.
Excellent.
It's not a conversation starter at parties. We got some people that are like, well, I feel sorry for this gentleman, but it's.
So we've got the mathematician, we've got the chemical engineer.
We've got the lawsuit from the Kennedys.
We've got the genetically.
It's not going to be good.
We've got the genetically modified rock band. Woo! Raise all 9 of your arms. That's 10. Not 9 that you got to.
Okay.
All right, Roman numeral joke. All right, so enough of that.
We've got the conic section here.
So Pete, as I understand, you have a science experiment to show us today.
I do indeed, and
right.
I warn people about their eyebrows in the front row.
All right, so shall we go
Shall
ahead
we
and
do
bring
it?
that
Yeah,
out?
let's
You
do
guys,
it. Okay.
Let's go ahead and
All right, let's do it.
let the experiment begin.
Since we have no, union folks working here, you're going to have to help me move it out. So let's see what we can do. All right, you might want to tilt it at an angle. Let's tilt it at the other angle.
There.
All right. We got a decent shot there?
that
Are we
good?
good? Are we good? Maybe you don't want a decent shot. Who could blame you? I can't really.
All right, Pete.
All right.
It's all you.
All right, so what we're going to do today is a bit of a chemistry experiment. It's now called something different. For those of you that are weird and cruise weird websites like I do on the internet, it's now called molecular gastronomy. Basically cooking with chemicals. We've been cooking with chemicals for a long, long time. So weird things like pectin that you use to thicken jellies and jams. Probably your mom or grandmother did that sort of thing before. Actually, extracts from seaweed, like things called carrageenan. You find those in your food products as well. Today we're going to work with something called sodium alginate. And sodium alginate, I actually brought some visual aids, Lou. Sodium alginate is actually derived from seaweed. You can get it from a number of different plant sources. The most common one is seaweed. And again, it is often used as a food thickener because it's a big, long molecule made of sugars. So anything from starch, Lou eats them on a regular basis, and that explains why it's in the can on a regular basis. So sodium alginate is kind of interesting because it has an ionic group, right? So there's an H+ ion on it. Let me see if I get a structure. Right? Normally you have this COO sort of minus ion, and you typically have an acid with that. They replace it with a sodium ion. And the interesting thing about sodium is it's a +1. So that means there's one ion in it. And if you take it and mix it with an ion that's got a +2, I've got it here somewhere, yeah, calcium chloride, then you can actually get the calcium +2 to connect to two different strands. So this is something you can do. The nice thing is you used to have to go to chemical supply houses to get this. Now, because people use it to thicken sauces, they use it to make nice little gel beads. Let's see if I got a picture of that. Did I put a picture of that in there? No, I did not. I made a picture of that, but I didn't put it in there. To put flavoring things in it, kind of looks like caviar. It looks really nice if you give a hoity-toity dinner party. If you put it into calcium chloride, the +2 ion will make the chain stick together, and you can make both beads and strings. So let me do a few of these things. And now we have sort of a worm. And the worm, it's okay. Okay, now wait a minute. I did that on Iowa television once. The host actually did eat it. It did not end well. I'm going to leave it with that. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about another molecule that you can buy at your local vitamin shop. It's called EDTA. How many people have seen EDTA on the side panel? So did you read the side panel of the consumer products you buy? So then you have no social life just like I do. So EDTA is something called a chelating agent. It grabs metals. So it'll grab that calcium ion and take it away. I have a theory that if we actually take our little worm, put it in a bunch of EDTA that's dissolved in water, we're going to let that sit for a few minutes. Hopefully it will start to get a little less stable and dissolve. If it doesn't, that means I've timed things incorrectly. I got a 50-50 chance. But the nice thing about EDTA is they put it in consumer products to grab any additional metals. And that's really good because too many metal ions will affect the way your hair gel, your shampoo, even your food behaves. So they put it in there. They used to do it for heavy metal poisoning. Problem with EDTA is it pulls all the ions out of your blood, not just the lead or other heavy metals. So we stopped using it about 50 years ago. Now we use much more subtle chemicals. But if you put it in your bloodstream at a high enough concentration, it will mess up the iron, the manganese, the magnesium. Not really good for you. It will grab the calcium. It grabs it in kind of a neat way, sort of surrounds it and grabs the metal. And it'll grab the calcium, and people think you should take this at vitamin stores because it takes away the calcium. Calcium plays a role in plaque formation. It's a much more complicated phenomenon than just pulling the calcium out. It can actually be quite dangerous, so I do not recommend this. And we'll hopefully see an example of it tearing apart our calcium ion here. But if we take it and put one of these things in sodium chloride again, then that single ion will replace this. Now we're going to try red. The way I got red and blue? Food coloring. All right, where's my calcium chloride? So we'll make another worm here. I'll grab my worm here, and then hopefully, so it's pretty stable. Again, tastes bad. We put it into sodium chloride. steer that around. All right, let's let that go for a bit. And let me see. Okay, I can't even pick it up. So EDTA has dissolved this, which is probably why you shouldn't be putting it in your bloodstream. And yeah, so I'm already breaking this guy apart. Yeah, so this guy's breaking apart as well, and that's replacing the calcium chloride. But you can buy these on the web, on molecular gastronomy sites, make cute little caviar beads to put flavors in.
Flavor beads.
Just don't take the EDTA pills you can buy at the vitamin shop.
Thank
there
you,
it is,
Steve. Thank you for that moment of science. We now have a very special guest from the past. Apparently we did insult Copernicus, and he has come back from the grave to be interviewed. So let's hear it for Copernicus.
How you doing? What do you got here? Crazy grocery store going on here? I don't know what I don't know what I'm looking at here. How you doing? Can I sit down here?
Dr.
Is that all right?
Copernicus, please.
How
have
you
a
doing,
seat.
ladies and gentlemen? Hey. You know, I used to wear the bangs, but now when they thawed me out, I was frozen for 400 years.
Yeah, so
right?
I thought you were dead. So how did you make it here?
2 words, cryogenics.
Cryogenic is 1 word.
Okay, after you've been frozen 400 years, it's 2 words.
Okay.
A lot of things becomes 2 words, extra syllables, things like that. You notice I used to wear the bangs,
Yes.
right? So by the time they froze me, right, I was actually had gray hair and things like that. But when they pulled me out, they said, Pete, we could do a touch-up.
Pete. They called you
Right,
Pete.
that's what they did. And how convenient. Yeah, because
Wow.
that's my Jersey name now. They froze me out.
You do sound like you're
in
from
Northern
Jersey.
Yeah.
I had no idea Copernicus
So I've been
has
frozen
such a heavy Jersey
for
accent.
6 months. And when you learn English in Jersey, it comes with the attitude,
I see.
which is good.
So now this was in Jersey, Prussia, right? Because you're from Prussia.
No. But I guess I was floating around the Atlantic for a while there. I am from Prussia, but the technology to unfreeze me was in the labs in Northern Jersey.
I see.
And then I learned English there, and it comes with the attitude, which is good.
Perfect.
You know.
So tell me, Copernicus, your heliocentric theory was pivotal in our understanding of the world.
Right.
What made you think that the Earth was not the center of the universe?
I believe we called it parallax, right? The relative movement of things depending on their distance. Now I think you use something similar, miralax, but it's for this this upper GI, lower GI. I don't know what. Every time I mention it, people get confused. They get very.
So did you have a colonoscopy back in Prussia?
No, we did not have that. In fact, nowadays you guys don't freeze people because you got to put in some antifreezes,
Yes,
right?
antifreeze.
Apparently the ice crystals are really tough on the tissue.
I can tell.
But we were tough back then. We could handle it. That's
Even
why
the
I'm here
spongy
today.
brain tissue.
Absolutely, absolutely. But they just figured you could suck it up, because what are we used to for modern medicine back then? Leeches, right?
Absolutely.
How bad can it be? And there it is, right? The reason we thought, a lot of people thought this, right? It's not as though this was the first thing. We used parallax to figure out exactly where the relative positions were. We didn't get the gas giants at the end. The optics of the telescopes were not that good, so we missed Neptune and Uranus.
Yeah.
But nobody wants to look at Uranus, Lou.
No,
That's all I'm saying.
Especially through a telescope.
Absolutely.
Oh
I think anyone that's been there before regrets that whole experience.
That's a Miralax moment.
Right. Yes, there you go. Another application for that lovely phenomenon. But we did get Pluto right. No Pluto. There it is.
Pluto.
We
So
had
Pluto
it right.
was not a planet.
Pluto was not there.
Edged its way
They
in.
told me
and then now
I was right all along.
Excellent. Well, thank
Absolutely.
you, Dr. Copernicus,
All right,
for
my
visiting
pleasure,
us
Lou.
here
My
on
pleasure.
Science Today.
All right.
Let's have a hand.
Thank you.
for
Thank you, ladies and
Copernicus.
gentlemen. All right. Thank you, sir.
All right, we're going to bring out our first guest. This gentleman is a biologist from the wonderful Georgia Institute of Technology. And so let's have a hand, and please welcome to the stage Dr. Will Ratcliffe.
Hey,
Hey, Will. Great. Thank you for coming.
thanks for having me.
Yeah.
This is great.
Will, tell us a little bit. You're kind of a. You look like a multicellular person. You look like you're more than one cell.
Last I checked.
I'm just going to say that.
yeah.
I'm coming up from the front. So, Will, tell us a little bit about what your interests are scientifically, just to get started.
So in general, I'm interested in understanding how complexity arises in evolution. I'm an evolutionary biologist. And I'm really sad to hear that your basement experiment with time travel isn't really working out so well.
Fine.
It's
as long
working
as
out.
You're willing to
Yeah,
go
okay.
1 second per second. I don't know what you're talking about. That's how I got here.
So my interests lie a little bit in the past.
Yeah, in the past.
Because I'd like to understand how the complex life that we see around us arose in evolution, right? If you think of sort of a natural scene, right? You imagine a beautiful tropical rainforest, right? And you sort of close your eyes. Do you have any, can you guys do New Age? Maybe we could play some New Age music.
Does Lucy and Zipper look like they can do New Age?
Or something very calming,
Rainforest music.
Yes.
Oh, Pete,
Good.
you missed Copernicus.
Yoga at the same time.
Sure. All right, so imagine a beautiful rainforest, right? Now, take away the plants, the ferns, the trees, the bryophytes, the shrubs,
There's not much left.
right? Maybe you hear a rain of insects as they fall because there are, many hundreds of thousands of species of
Birds,
insects.
too. I'm thinking this.
Birds, flapping of birds, things falling on your head from the birds. Those are animals. Get rid of those. They're multicellular. What do you have left? Maybe some
Lou is what I'm thinking. It's he's that far down on the chain.
So you're calling them a mushroom. All right, well, mushrooms are also multicellular, so we
no
can get rid of
mushrooms.
those.
No
and,
fungus.
and basically, if you remove...
Bacteria.
There are multicellular bacteria, but you can't generally see them very well with the naked eye. And then my point is, what we think of as life is characterized, at least at the visual scale, by things that are multicellular, right? If you remove all multicellular organisms from planet Earth, you're left with maybe a sort of a greener version of Mars.
So yeast.
So I work with yeast, and because we can't travel back in time, back between really 1.1 and 600 million years ago, when most of Earth's major lineages of multicellular organisms sort of made their first foray into multicellularity, because we can't go back in time and understand how the single-celled ancestor of those lineages made those first steps to multicellularity, we're doing that in our lab. And we use a technique called experimental evolution, which is sort of like crop breeding. We basically are doing
So
selective
you
breeding
can do
experiments.
evolution in your lab.
That's right. We do thousands
But
of
not in
generations of
Cobb
evolution.
County, right?
I'm a little concerned about that one.
So, I mean, so that's awesome that you're actually able to evolve in your lab.
That's right, yeah.
And what kinds of, have you made yeast that can fly?
No, but we haven't been selecting for flight. In
Oh.
fact, if you were to do the experiments in my lab, I'd probably kick you out.
Oh, I see.
Because it would involve throwing around yeast in my lab, which is not so cool.
Eventually, it's got to learn to fly. You've got to kick the yeast out
Who
of
does
it.
that when
Maybe
he spills his
DARPA will
beer?
be interested.
It's all over the place.
So tell us a little bit. I
Yeah.
mean, for example, you work with both flocculating yeast,
Yeah.
which is just fun to say.
Gesundheit.
Flocculating yeast and snowflake
It
yeast.
sounds like a safe curse word.
Yes.
Like, flocculating.
The newest thing on I-75.
Actually, so flocculating yeast are yeast that are, many yeasts in nature are sticky. They adhere together and they form these blobs, which is sort of what we might call a biofilm. And I-7585 is a fantastic example of cohesion, of things coming together and forming a group. And which is generally annoying for us.
So yeast.
Flocculating.
Flocculating yeast or snowflake yeast. Which one makes better beer?
You knew that was coming.
I did know it was coming.
We knew that was coming.
Now, okay, I should explain what snowflake yeast are. Snowflake yeast are what we evolve in our lab. If we take a single-celled ancestor and we select for size, we get these very nice geometrically ordered multicellular groups, which over thousands of generations of experimental evolution get a multicellular life cycle such that groups produce new little baby groups, and those baby groups have to grow to their parent size before they reproduce, make their own baby groups. We've even seen a simple form of cellular division of labor arising, where some cells in the group, they're all genetically identical in the group, evolve to kill themselves in a way that is for the good of the group. And so we are basically getting bona fide, yet simple multicellularity evolving. And these guys are much better in our experiments than flocculating yeast, these yeast that stick together and form these.
So you're kind of like playing God with yeast.
Kind of, yeah.
So in your lab,
yeah.
you're recreating this transition from single-celled going toward multi-celled.
Exactly.
Okay. Does anyone knock on the door from Cobb County and say, "What are you doing in there?"
That can't be!
They have not yet, although we did host a AAAS symposium group that visited our lab that was 50% scientists, 50% clergy.
Really? So
Yep.
do you ever have to face evolution deniers and people who are, maybe...
Yeah, all the time.
How do you bring them to your lab and give them yeast?
I would love to. I would love to. If you're an evolution denier and you want to come to my lab and get yeast, I'd be happy to do that. So we do. I think in general, you don't want to be a jerk, right? Sort of rule one is don't be an ass.
I mean, in general, okay.
Yes, except for
It's a
the
good
host
life.
of
This
this
is a
show.
good life lesson, but also good for science. Because it's a contentious issue and people have very, very strong feelings about it. And so my goal as a scientist is to essentially explain what we're doing without pressing buttons.
I see.
And one of the nice things about our research is that rather than having to sort of rely on somebody essentially putting their faith in you, that you're telling the truth, that yes, these things did evolve from common ancestors and all life that we see on planet Earth descends from a single common ancestor. And we have very good reasons for thinking that. But you have to think through those reasons to really explain it to someone. In our lab, I can show you, here's the actual ancestor, here are things that I evolved, right? You can't really deny that because it happened over a very short period of time, chronologically, even though that was thousands of generations from the perspective of the yeast.
Excellent. All right, so let's give a hand to Will Ratcliffe, evolutionary biologist, and let's make a little room on the couch for our next guest. This next guest here on the show is from Emory University. She is an ethnobotanist, and we are very happy to have Cassandra Quave. Ladies and gentlemen, let's hear from Dr. Cassandra Quave. Hi, Cassie.
Hi, how are you?
Good, thanks for coming.
Good, thank you.
Welcome to Science Today.
I'm excited to be
Yes,
here.
we're happy to have you.
That's not what she said backstage. She was about to call a cab.
So Cassie, you were in charge of the herbarium at Emory, and you're an expert on medicinal plants.
Yes.
So when do you move to Colorado?
So I'm a botanist, but I don't study marijuana.
Just putting that out there.
The herbarium, big cage with a lot of guys named Herb.
That's right. Okay.
Yeah. So an herbarium is actually like a library of dead plants. So I'll give everybody a,
Sounds more exciting than a regular library.
so they're smushed on paper. And we have about 20,000 specimens in our herbariums. It's smaller on the scale of things, but really nice collection. A lot of medicinal plants there as well.
So I have a quick question. So isn't it true that Emory University Herbarium is a shell company for a major drug gang? Isn't that true? I mean, isn't it true that Emory is actually addicted to Coke?
Yes.
Yes!
Well, so two of the plants that were used in the original formulation of Coca-Cola, of course, are also important stimulant plants still today in indigenous societies. You have the cola nut,
Right.
and also coca leaves, which are still chewed for energy. And
Can you get coca leaves in the U.S.?
You can,
You
but
can.
you'll be arrested probably at the border.
Really?
With very special permits.
Unless
but
you do it
probably
right.
get in, Yeah.
Do they still put extracts of coca leaf in Coca-Cola?
Well, as you all know, Coca-Cola is a trade secret formula, and I don't have any insider information, unfortunately.
Yes.
So.
Yes.
They do.
They do.
So how do they get the leaves in the United States?
Coca-Cola, don't ask.
Lou helps him.
I help him.
It's a side job for him.
So tell us about medicinal plants that might be useful to our audience. Things that people can find in their farmers markets or their grocery stores. Any interesting roots and berries and beans.
You're big on the beer kick, aren't you?
Roots and berries and beans are not beer.
Okay, but you almost said beer. Freudian slip, something like that. I don't know.
Oh, Freudian slip is like when you mean to say something and then you accidentally say, instead of saying one thing, you talk about your mother.
I thought it's when Freud falls over, slips and falls on your head. That's sort of.
How many Freudian psychologists does it take to screw in a penis?
I
light bulb.
I looked right into that one, didn't
Sorry.
I? Happens every time.
I'm sorry, Cassie. Please.
Where were we? medicinal plants in
Medicinal
your grocery
plants.
store. Okay. So yeah, some of the most important medicinal plants are actually those that you can find in many farmers markets, local farmers markets across Atlanta. There's a great saying by Hippocrates: "Let thy food be thy medicine, and thy medicine be thy food." So eating a lot of fresh veggies is, of course, good for you. And don't waste your money on expensive antioxidant pills. Just go buy some dark berries to eat in your regular diet, and you'll be okay.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So we're putting the pharmaceutical companies out of business here on Science Today. Funding, bye-bye. Excellent.
There are other plants, of course, that are of interest to pharmaceutical companies. So in my lab, we study infectious disease, and in particular MRSA. Everybody heard of the superbugs that are out?
Yes.
Right? Okay, across the U.S., we've had Klebsiella infections, staph infections spreading across the U.S. The scary thing is that these are multi-drug resistant. So our pipeline of antibiotics is becoming smaller and smaller, and we need new therapeutics to treat these resistant infections. So in my lab, we actually go back to old remedies to find new cures. So in our field work, we're out interviewing people, asking them about what plants do you put on your skin when you have an abscess or a wound or a cut? How do you prevent the infection? How do you treat the infection? We then take those plants back into the lab and extract the chemicals from them and then test them against all of these nasty superbugs, looking for new sources of antibiotics.
Great.
And so it's a lot of fun.
So isn't it true, though, that a lot of the really interesting drugs that we get were found in nature? And it's simply a matter of
Absolutely.
purifying, finding, those sorts of things?
Absolutely. I mean, everyone here has probably had aspirin at some point. Aspirin is a great example of one that was found in willow bark and also in meadowsweet. If you've ever had surgery before and needed to have painkillers following that surgery, that comes from the opium poppy in most cases. Those are opiates from Papaver somniferum. It means the sleepy poppy, somniferum.
I saw that part of Wizard of Oz.
Yes, that's right.
Poppies. Sorry.
And we were talking about coca before. If anyone's ever had dental work before and you've had that nice numbing shot into your gums,
Nothing nice about it at all.
nothing nice about it.
Let's talk more about needles and
But
dentistry.
the procaine Novocaine derivatives, it's that 9-foot needle that he
Yeah. It's a lot nicer having that injection and not feeling what comes after,
I've been
is what I
there,
mean.
yeah.
And that comes from cocoa leaves as well. So all of your cane derivatives, your lidocaine, novocaine, all those are from
Candy
originally
cane.
from coca.
There's
Yeah,
loose
candy. That would take a very special candy cane, I
Very
think.
special plant. Only grows at the North Pole. All right. We are just about done with our Science Today panel for our first segment. But before Lucine Zipper takes us out with another great band hit, I want to see if there's any sort of quick personal stories or moments, things about yourself in your non-science life that you guys might want to share.
Are you trying to remind our audience that scientists are people too?
Yes.
So Cassie,
So,
are they people?
We are people! No. So, I'll tell a bit of a personal story. So how does a South Florida country girl end up studying superbugs and
Yes.
plants? That's
You
kind of a strange
lost a wager.
So I actually was born with congenital birth defects of my skeletal system, and I had to have my leg amputated when I was 3. And unfortunately, I was victim to one of many, many hospital-associated infections. I had a horrible staph infection on my leg and almost died from it when I was 3 years old.
Wow.
So when I was picking out my dissertation topic, what bug do I study? I said, I will take my vendetta on staph. That's how I got into staph research.
Excellent.
So anger. Anger
Anger is always a good motivator.
Anger and amputation.
Yes, anger and
motivation.
amputation will make the best scientists.
Well,
I'm going back to my lab and taking a few graduate student limbs. You're going to do great. Have you seen what Cassie's done?
Ultimate
Horrible. I'm going
motivator.
to hell.
Well, they appear to be laughing at it, so we're all going to hell.
What about you, Will?
I was going to tell you about my chickens and gardening, so I can't follow that story.
No chickens and gardening's great.
No, but you grew up as a hippie, right?
Yeah, I did, absolutely. Yeah, I grew up in Berkeley, California. My family was not altogether familiar with ethnobotany.
Yes.
Just leave it at that.
That's okay. Enough said.
How did they feel about clothing? Did they wear any? Or
Clothing
it
was,
just like
yeah, it's great. It has a lot of functional utility, but it's not strictly required at all times. No, we actually had a wood-fired hot tub that was,
Nice.
a naked hot tub, and
Naked hot tub.
I grew up with a family cabin sort of. My great-grandfather bought 1,000 acres on the coast of Mendocino County, which is 3 hours north of San Francisco. It's beautiful. It's private beach, redwood trees, the whole shebang.
Wow.
And so my grandfather built this amazing cabin by hand. Like I remember a very vivid interaction I had with him where he came up to me and he grabbed me really hard on the shoulder and said, "You know what, Willie? This is the hammer that built the ranch." And I was like, it was the hammer that built the whole thing, which is very impressive. No power, so he hand sawed all of the timber and stuff. He's a tough guy, really, really, really tough. We have like these amazing huge driftwood tables, which he strapped to his back as logs and carried up a 70-foot sheer cliff. And then was like, I don't know why my back hurts today.
All right, well, let's have a hand for Cassie Quave and Will Ratcliffe here on Science Today. You want to take us out, Lucine Zipper, with a great song?